Hello everyone, CoinHound here. Today we're going to take a look at a Red Grange silver medal from the Calvacade of Sports series, which was issued in 1967 by the Metal Arts Company. So this was a medal that I kind of stumbled upon by accident on eBay. I'm a Chicago Bears fan, and I was just kind of searching for Chicago Bears themed silver, and this medal popped up, and I was struck by it right away, by its craftsmanship, its beauty, and it took a little bit of research to figure out what the story was on the medal. But it turns out it was part of a series, as I mentioned in the intro there, and it's on the screen. This is a photo of the case that these medals came in, and they were called the Cavalcade of Sports series, 1967, and it was a series of 12 silver medals, which you can see on your screen there, that were basically honoring great sporting figures of the 20th century. Or at least of the 20th century up until 1967. So the sports stars that were honored and their medals are shown here on the screen. I don't own these medals. I only own one of them, which we'll look at in a moment. This is just a photo I pulled off the internet. But as you can see, the top row there from left to right, you have Joe DiMaggio, the baseball player, Bobby Jones, the golfer, Red Grange, the subject of our video today, who was a football player, Ty Cobb, baseball player. Second row, you have Jesse Owens. And then interestingly, next up is a horse, Man O' War, who was a very famous racehorse. Then you had Babe Didrikson. I believe she was a tennis player. The Four Horsemen of Notre Dame, football players. And then in the bottom row, Babe Ruth, baseball player. Jim Thorpe, football player, Lou Gehrig, baseball player, and Jack Dempsey, boxer. So anyways, what we're going to do now is I'm going to shift to my camera. We're going to take a look at the Red Grange Medal, the topic of the video, and I'll give you a little bit of information on that. And then afterwards, a little bit of information on Red Grange himself and why he was significant. All right, folks, so here is the medal itself, the Red Grange silver medal from 1967, Cavalcade of Sports by the Metal Arts Company. Now, is that a beauty or what? It does have an antiquing to it, which is the way the medals were made. This is a rendition here of Red Grange, obviously, and it's kind of a close-up portrait. His name there in the background. He's holding a football. Just a beautiful looking medal. So you can take that in momentarily. Now, one of the interesting things about this is it does have some edge lettering right here. Let me get this turned around. The Metal Arts Company. Now, they produced a lot of medals back in the 60s. Haven't been able to find out much about them. I did a little research. They seem to have kind of disappeared. It was based in Rochester, New York. 3 nines fine silver, as you can see there. And the weight, some disagreement online about the weight, so I'll bring that back up in a moment. But let's look at the other side of the medal first here. So his nickname was the Galloping Ghost, and so that nickname is here. You have a football action play. He was number 77. He was once asked why he was number 77, and he said, well, when they were issuing uniforms, the guy in front of me got 76, and the guy after me got 78. So apparently no rhyme or reason to it. You can see the inscription there that this is a commemoration of his most famous game, which took place in 1924, Illinois versus Michigan. I'll talk more about that in a moment. But what a beautiful piece. I mean, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but really a beautiful work of art here. Now, as I mentioned about the weight, I've seen online, some have said that these medals are 1 ounce. I've seen in some other places that they're 0.85 ounces, 85 hundredths of an ounce. And the only way to figure out the answer for sure is for me to weigh it. And so that's what I'm going to do right now. I have here a scale, which I picked up a little while back for this express purpose of weighing coins, a digital touch pocket scale. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that out, and we're going to put this coin on it, and we're going to, or this round metal, sorry, and we're going to weigh it and see what happens here. So let's take out this. So let's take this out, and we have it here. I've used this a few times previously. I really like this scale. If it captures your fancy and you're interested in getting one, I'll put my Amazon link in the description of the video, and then you can get one too. It's relatively inexpensive. So let me hit the power button here. Excellent. And then I'm going to have to choose, I believe. Oops, that was grams, ounces. Okay, troy ounces. There you go. OZT. So it does grams, it does ounces, it does troy ounces. A handy little scale. And I'm going to put this metal on there, and we'll see what happens. 0.956. So 0.96. So I guess in theory it's a 1 ounce metal. I don't know what the standards are for how exact something should be in quality control, but I guess we'll just call it a 1 ounce metal. So anyways, that solves that mystery, and we'll move that to the side. We'll take one last look at the metal here. There you have it, and I'm going to put my glove back on. It's antique, so I don't know if there would be any issues with touching it, but it is a beautiful piece, so I'm going to not take any chances. There it is. The one side. Boom. And the other. Now, if you're so inclined and willing to stay on with me for a few more minutes, I am going to talk a little bit about Red Grange and his story. Why is it that he was so celebrated? How did he make his way into this coin series? So this is a photo here of Red Grange, a famous photo. The original was in black and white. This is a colorized version, which I really like. I think it really brings the image to life. And Red Grange was arguably the first national football superstar. He played football in college at the University of Illinois, and at the professional level, played the vast majority of his career with the Chicago Bears. Now, to just open up our discussion of Red Grange, I have a nice quote here on the screen. This was from a sports columnist named Damon Runyon. It was written in 1925 after one of his games that was covered by Runyon. And he wrote, quote, "This man, Red Grange of Illinois, is 3 or 4 men and a horse rolled into one for football purposes. He is Jack Dempsey, Babe Ruth, Al Jolson, Pavo Nurmi, and Man-O-War. Put them all together. They spell Grange." So quite the accolades there. Now, who was Red Grange? And I pulled out an ESPN article and just a few tidbits from it to fill you in a little bit on Red Grange. So Red Grange was born in, I believe, Pennsylvania, but he grew up and spent his high school years in Wheaton, Illinois. And he attended Wheaton High School. And he was a superstar athlete in Wheaton High School. His junior year in football, he scored 36 touchdowns and led the high school to an undefeated season. He was a track and field star. During his junior and senior years, he managed to win the 100-yard dash, the 220-yard dash, and the long jump. And when I said he won, I meant he won state titles. He was the state champion in those track events. So a tremendous athlete. So arguably, his greatest achievements and fame did take place at the college level at the University of Illinois. He was a 3-time All-American halfback there. They won the national championship when he was there. And the game that, to a certain extent, made him famous took place in 1924 on October 18th against Michigan. It was a home game at the University of Illinois in front of 66,000 plus people. Michigan had come into the game unbeaten in their last 20 games. And then the Red Grange show began right with the opening kickoff, which he returned 95 yards for a touchdown. Then a few minutes later, he scored on a 67-yard touchdown run. A couple minutes after that, a 56-yard touchdown run. And not long after that, a 44-yard touchdown run to give Illinois a lead of 27-0. Those 4 touchdowns, which ESPN notes covered 262 yards, came in the first 12 minutes of the game. But he wasn't done. In the second half, he added a 5th touchdown on an 11-yard run and also threw a touchdown pass of 20 yards. And the final score was 39-14, a triumphant victory for the University of Illinois. A year later, Illinois played the University of Pennsylvania, and ESPN notes that it was such a big game that a famed war correspondent named Lawrence Stallings had been sent by the New York World to cover the game. In that game, Grange accounted for an astounding 363 yards in leading Illinois to a 24-2 upset of Penn, who was considered to be an Ivy League powerhouse. This famed war correspondent, Stallings, stated, quote, "This story is too big for me. I cannot write it," unquote. Amazing. Now, Grange would eventually turn pro. The NFL at that time was a fledgling league. It was founded initially in 1920. And its existence, I think, at that point was, its long-term existence at that point was long from guaranteed. And Red Grange is considered to be the first national football superstar, and is considered to have put the NFL on the map. Initially, he was signed by the Chicago Bears, and they took him on a barnstorming tour in which they played 19 games in 17 different cities in about 2 months. It was quite a celebrated tour, if you'll call it that. On December 6, 1925, more than 65,000 showed up in New York at the Polo Grounds to watch him play. And some have credited that attendance for saving the New York Giants franchise. He scored a touchdown on a 35-yard interception return in that game. He ran for 53 yards on 11 carries. He caught a 23-yard touchdown pass and completed 2 of 3 passes for 32 yards. During that tour, he earned $100,000 for basically 2 months of work. And that was considered to be just an incredible amount of money at the time. George Halas, the founder of the NFL and the long-standing owner and coach of the Chicago Bears, he said that there was no player that had a greater impact on the game of football, be it college or pro, than Red Grange did. A lot of accolades for him. He was a first-team All-Pro in the NFL for two times. And in years after he played, his fame lived on. In 1969, the Football Writers Association of America commemorated the 100th anniversary of college football by choosing an all-time All-America team. And Red Grange, of course, was on the team, and he was the only unanimous choice for that team. Years later, in 2008, ESPN published a greatest 25 players in college football history listing. And they picked Red Grange number 1 for that. Anyways, that's the story of Red Grange and the Medal Arts silver medal. And once again, as always, I wish you a wonderful day, a wonderful evening. This is Coinhound signing out.